The Villanueva Mansion stood proudly on top of a hill, its towering gates and elegant gardens making it the envy of everyone in the city. People often looked at the mansion with admiration. If only I could marry into that family. I heard they're kind. Their eldest son is so handsome. Emily Santos would have laughed if she had heard those words. Kind? No. Behind those expensive walls hid a family more cruel than anyone could imagine. Emily had once been a bright, ambitious woman. She dreamed of becoming an architect. She had graduated with honors and had already received offers from several companies. Then she met Adrian Villanueva. He was charming, gentle, patient. He waited outside her university every afternoon just to walk her home. When she became sick, he stayed beside her hospital bed for 3 days without sleeping. When he proposed, he knelt in the pouring rain. I don't care if we become poor, he had whispered. As long as you're beside me. Emily believed him. She rejected every job offer and devoted herself to becoming the perfect wife. On their wedding day, Adrian slid a diamond ring onto her finger. I promise you'll never cry because of me. It was the biggest lie he had ever told. The first month of marriage was peaceful. The second month changed everything. His mother suddenly dismissed 3 housemaids. We don't need servants anymore. Emily smiled. I can help. She thought it would only be temporary. She was wrong. Within weeks, she became the only person cleaning the enormous mansion. Every morning at 4 o'clock, she woke before everyone else. She prepared breakfast for 9 people. She cleaned 32 windows, 3 bathrooms, 2 living rooms, a dining hall, the library, the bedrooms. She washed mountains of laundry by hand because her mother-in-law insisted that the washing machine damaged expensive clothing. By midnight, she still wasn't finished. Her hands became rough. Her knees constantly ached. Sometimes she secretly cried while washing dishes. Not because of the work, but because Adrian never once defended her. Whenever she asked for help, he simply replied, "Please understand my family. I don't want to argue with them." She always understood, until she no longer recognized the woman staring back at her in the mirror. 5 years passed. 5 years of sacrifice. 5 years of being ignored. Not once did Adrian celebrate her birthday. Not once did he remember their anniversary. Not once did anyone ask, "Emily, are you tired?" Instead, they treated her existence like a convenience. If breakfast was late, Emily. If someone's clothes weren't ironed, Emily. If a glass broke, Emily. She answered every call. Like a servant. Like a machine. Like someone whose only purpose was to make everyone else's life easier. One rainy Friday evening, Emily was preparing dinner. The smell of soup filled the kitchen. She heard laughter coming from outside. Real laughter. The kind Adrian hadn't shared with her in years. Curious, she wiped her hands on her apron and walked toward the entrance. The front doors opened. Adrian entered first. His suit was soaked from the rain. Beside him stood a beautiful young woman wearing a white dress beneath his umbrella. She looked elegant, confident, happy. Adrian smiled at her with a warmth Emily hadn't seen in years. His mother rushed downstairs. "Oh my goodness." She hugged the young woman tightly. "So, you're finally here." Emily blinked. "Finally?" His father smiled proudly. "Welcome home, Emily." His younger sister squealed excitedly. "You're even prettier than your photos." Emily's heartbeat quickened. Photos? Everyone already knew her? No one had told Emily. No one had even warned her. Adrian wrapped his arm around the woman's waist. "I want everyone to meet Emily. The woman I truly love." The world stopped. Emily stared at her husband. Waiting. Praying. Hoping he would laugh and say it was a joke. He didn't. Instead, he looked directly at her. "Emily, I want a divorce." The bowl she was carrying slipped from her trembling hands. Crash! The porcelain shattered across the marble floor. Silence filled the mansion. Emily's voice barely came out. "What?" Adrian sighed impatiently. "I've loved Emily for years. I only married you because my grandmother wanted me to settle down. You were convenient. Convenient. 5 years of marriage. Reduced to one word. His mother stepped forward. We've tolerated you long enough. Pack your things. Emily looked around the room. Every face she had cooked for. Every person she had cared for when they were sick. Every family member she had loved as her own. Not one looked guilty. Not one defended her. Instead, they all smiled at Emily. Emily finally walked toward Emily. Her voice was soft. I'm sorry, but love can't be forced. Emily laughed. At first, it was only a quiet laugh. Then it grew louder. Years of pain. Years of humiliation. Years of loneliness. Everything burst out at once. She looked at Adrian. You promised I'd never cry because of you. You lied. She looked at his family. I gave you everything. And you gave me nothing. Her voice echoed through the mansion. You never wanted a daughter-in-law. You wanted a slave. Emily's smile disappeared. She suddenly burst into tears. Please stop yelling. I'm scared. She turned and ran out of the mansion. Emily. Adrian sprinted after her. The entire family followed. Emily stood frozen. Then, a deafening screech split the air. A truck's horn blared. People screamed. A violent crash echoed across the street. Emily slowly walked toward the gate. Emily lay motionless on the wet pavement. Blood stained the road. Red. Adrian dropped to his knees beside her body. He held her tightly, crying harder than he had ever cried for Emily. Then, he slowly turned. His head. Their eyes met. The grief in his face disappeared. Only hatred remained. You killed her. Those 3 words changed Emily's fate. Forever. The rain poured relentlessly. Emily stood frozen at the mansion gate, staring at Emily's lifeless body lying on the road. The ambulance arrived minutes later, but everyone already knew it was too late. Adrian held Emily's cold hand, tears streaming down his face. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. Emily had never seen him cry like that. Not when she lost her own mother. Not when she suffered a miscarriage 2 years into their marriage. Not even when she collapsed from exhaustion after working for 3 days with a high fever. But now, for Emily, he cried as if his entire world had ended. The police questioned everyone about the accident. Witnesses confirmed that Emily had run into the road without looking. The driver wasn't speeding. It was ruled an accident. Legally, no one could blame Emily. Yet the Villanueva family looked at her as though she had murdered Emily with her own hands. That night, Emily quietly packed her belongings. She only owned 1 suitcase after 5 years of marriage. As she reached the front door, Adrian's voice stopped. Her. Where are you going? Emily didn't even look at him. You wanted a divorce. I'll leave. There was a long silence. Then Adrian said something she never expected. Stay. She frowned. What? My grandmother is very ill, he said coldly. If she finds out we're divorcing, it could kill her. So stay until she's better. Emily let out a bitter laugh. Even now, he wasn't asking because he cared. He only cared about appearances. Still, she had nowhere else to go. So she stayed. The next morning, Emily woke up before dawn out of habit. She quietly walked toward the kitchen. Before she could begin cooking, she froze. Breakfast was already prepared. She looked around in confusion. Adrian emerged from the dining room carrying 2 cups of coffee. You don't have to cook today. Emily stared at him. What? I hired new staff. Almost on cue, 3 maids entered the kitchen. One politely bowed. Good morning, madam. Emily blinked. Madam? No one had called her that in years. The days that followed became stranger. Her mother-in-law no longer ordered her around. Instead, she smiled awkwardly whenever they met. If you're tired, go rest. Her father-in-law asked if she wanted a new car. Adrian bought her expensive dresses, jewelry, flowers. He even remembered her favorite desserts. One evening, he surprised her with a candlelight dinner. I know I haven't been a good husband. I'll do better. Emily stared silently across the table. This wasn't the Adrian she knew. It felt wrong. Weeks turned into months. The Villanueva family became the perfect family. They celebrated her birthday for the first time. Her sister-in-law apologized for years of cruelty. Her mother-in-law hugged her. "I've always thought of you as my daughter." Emily almost believed them. Almost. But every now and then, she noticed strange things. Whenever she entered a room unexpectedly, conversations would stop. If she asked about Emily, everyone became silent. One night, she woke up thirsty. As she passed Adrian's office, she heard voices. "The anniversary is approaching. We've prepared everything." She still doesn't suspect anything. Emily frowned. Who are they talking about? She reached for the doorknob, then the voices stopped. She quickly walked away before anyone could see her. Exactly 1 year after Emily's death, Adrian gently woke her. "Emily." She opened her eyes sleepily. Let's visit Emily's grave." Emily hesitated. "Why would you want me there?" Adrian smiled softly. "Because we've all forgiven you." Those words made her chest tighten. Forgiven? She hadn't done anything wrong. Still, she agreed. Maybe this would finally bring everyone peace. She wore a simple white dress. The entire Villanueva family traveled together in silence. When they arrived at the cemetery, Emily noticed something strange. There wasn't another visitor in sight. The sky was gray. The wind felt unnaturally cold. As Adrian placed white lilies on Emily's grave, he whispered, "Happy first anniversary." Then, he slowly turned toward Emily. His gentle smile disappeared. His eyes became cold, empty, filled with hatred. Emily suddenly felt afraid. Adrian, his younger brother, stepped behind her. His father moved to her left. His mother blocked the path back to the car. What's going on?" No one answered. Adrian reached into his coat. Emily's heart pounded. He pulled out a knife. She stumbled backward. What are you doing?" Adrian walked toward her, his face expressionless. "If it weren't for you, Emily would still be alive. You stole the life that should have been hers." Emily's eyes filled with tears. "It was an accident. I didn't push her. I tried to enough." His mother covered Emily's mouth. His brothers grabbed her arms. She struggled with all her strength. No one came. No one heard her cries. Adrian stood before her. His voice was almost gentle. "We treated you well this past year, so your death would hurt even more." Emily's eyes widened in horror. It had all been an act. Every smile, every apology, every flower, every gift, every "I love you." It had all been a lie. Adrian leaned close and whispered, "This is for Emily." The knife flashed. Emily closed her eyes. A single tear rolled down her cheek. "I loved you." Those were the last words she ever spoke. Emily gasped as she sat upright. Her heart pounded wildly, and cold sweat soaked her forehead. She instinctively pressed a hand against her chest. No wound. No blood. She looked around in confusion. She was standing in the Villanueva Mansion's kitchen, the familiar scent of simmering soup filling the air. The vegetables on the cutting board were half-chopped, and the rice cooker beeped softly. "This can't be." Her trembling eyes landed on the calendar hanging near the refrigerator. July 18th. The exact day Adrian had brought Emily home. The exact day everything had begun. Emily stumbled backward, nearly knocking over a chair. No. She remembered everything. The years of being treated like a servant. The humiliation. Emily's accident. The year of fake kindness. The cemetery. Adrian's cold voice. "We only kept you alive so we could offer your life for Emily." The knife. The darkness. She had died. Yet somehow, she was alive again. A loud honk echoed from outside. Emily slowly walked toward the living room window. A familiar black luxury car stopped in front of the mansion. Her breathing became uneven. "It's happening." The front door opened. Adrian stepped inside, wearing the same tailored black suit. Beside him stood Emily. She looked exactly as Emily remembered, beautiful, elegant, and smiling as if she already owned everything. Adrian wrapped an arm around Emily's waist. "Everyone," he announced proudly, "this is Emily." His mother rushed forward first. "Oh dear. We've been waiting to meet you." His father laughed warmly. "Welcome to the family." His younger sister squealed with excitement. "You're even prettier in person." Emily watched silently from the hallway. In her previous life, this was the moment she had broken down. This time, she simply smiled. It wasn't a smile of happiness. It was the smile of someone who already knew the ending. Adrian finally noticed her. "Oh, Emily." He sounded almost annoyed that she was there. "I wanted to tell you earlier. This is Emily." Emily walked toward them calmly. She looked at Emily from head to toe before extending her hand. "Welcome." Emily blinked in surprise. "You aren't angry?" Emily chuckled softly. "Why would I be? You'll eventually leave this house anyway." The room fell silent. Adrian frowned. "What does that mean?" Emily smiled mysteriously. "You'll understand someday." Without another word, she turned and walked back to the kitchen. The Villanueva family exchanged confused glances. This wasn't the Emily they knew. She hadn't cried. She hadn't begged. She hadn't shouted. Instead, she looked frighteningly calm. That night, after everyone had gone to sleep, Emily entered Adrian's study. She knew every corner of the mansion. She knew where he kept important documents. She unlocked the drawer using the spare key she had secretly copied years ago. Inside were company files, bank statements, property documents, and contracts. Emily carefully photographed every page with her phone. As she reached for the last folder, she froze. It contained records of money transferred to overseas accounts under fake company names. She remembered hearing Adrian and his father argue about these documents in her first life. At the time, she hadn't understood. Now she did. This is enough to destroy you." She quietly returned everything exactly as she had found it. Before leaving the study, she noticed a small digital voice recorder on Adrian's desk. A memory flashed through her mind. Adrian often recorded business meetings. Without hesitation, Emily slipped the recorder into her pocket. "It'll be more useful in my hands." Over the next few days, Emily changed completely. She stopped serving the Villanueva family. She cooked only for herself. She no longer ironed anyone's clothes. When her mother-in-law demanded tea, Emily simply replied, "The kitchen is that way." The older woman stared at her in disbelief. "What did you just say?" Emily smiled politely. "I'm not the maid." For the first time, someone had dared to refuse her. Adrian grew increasingly irritated. Every time he tried to provoke Emily, she remained calm. One evening, he cornered her in the hallway. "What game are you playing?" Emily looked directly into his eyes. "No game. I'm just done sacrificing myself for people who never deserved it." For a brief moment, Adrian felt something unfamiliar. Unease. The woman who had once chased after him had completely disappeared, and for reasons he couldn't explain. That frightened him. Later that night, Emily stood alone on the mansion's balcony, looking at the city lights below. In her previous life, she had begged for love. She had believed that if she worked harder, loved more deeply, and endured a little longer, everything would eventually change. But she had been wrong. Love without respect was slavery. Forgiveness without change was weakness. And sacrifice without limits only invited more suffering. She clenched her fists. "This life. I won't waste it trying to earn your love. I'll spend it taking back the life you stole from me." For the first time since her rebirth, Emily wasn't afraid. She was ready. The next morning, the Villanueva mansion felt strangely quiet. Emily woke up at 6 o'clock, dressed neatly, and walked downstairs. Unlike before, she didn't head to the kitchen. Instead, she made herself a cup of coffee, picked up a book from the living room, and sat comfortably on the sofa. A few minutes later, Adrian's mother came downstairs. She looked around in confusion. "Emily?" Emily looked up from her book. "Yes, Mother." "Why isn't breakfast ready?" Emily smiled politely. "There are 3 maids in the kitchen. They can prepare it." Her mother-in-law frowned. "But you've always cooked breakfast." Emily calmly took another sip of her coffee. I've also always been treated like a maid. I'm not doing that anymore. The older woman's face darkened. Before she could argue, Adrian walked into the dining room. What's going on? Your wife refuses to cook, his mother complained. Adrian turned toward Emily. She expected him to scold her. Instead, he simply sighed. Let the maids handle it. His mother stared at him in disbelief. But I said let them handle it. Emily raised an eyebrow. That was new. Life inside the mansion slowly began to change. Without Emily managing everything, the household became chaotic. The maids forgot schedules. Meals were served late. Important documents went missing because no one remembered where Emily usually organized them. Even Adrian started arriving late to work because no one prepared his clothes or reminded him of his meetings. One afternoon, he stood in front of his closet, searching for a blue necktie. He couldn't find it anywhere. Out of habit, he called Emily. She appeared at the doorway. Yes, where's my blue tie? Emily crossed her arms. I don't know. You always organize my wardrobe. She smiled faintly. I stopped. Adrian looked at her for several seconds. In the past, she would have rushed over, apologized, and found it within seconds. No. She simply turned around and left. For reasons he couldn't explain. He felt irritated. Not because of the tie, but because Emily no longer cared. Meanwhile, Emily noticed everything. She watched Adrian's eyes unconsciously follow Emily whenever she entered a room. Not with love. With curiosity. The woman who once begged for his attention had suddenly become impossible to understand. One evening, Emily wrapped her arms around Adrian. Are you thinking about her? Adrian frowned. What? You've been staring at Emily. I wasn't. You were. He pulled away. Stop imagining things. But after Emily left the room, he realized she was right. Why was Emily so different? Why didn't she cry anymore? Why didn't she fight for him? For the first time, he found himself wondering what she was thinking. Emily, however, had no interest in Adrian. Every night, she secretly entered the study after everyone had gone to bed. Using the recorder she had taken, she copied confidential meetings onto her laptop. She photographed more documents. She discovered fake contracts, hidden bank accounts, and proof that Adrian's father had been transferring company funds through shell corporations. Then she found something unexpected. A folder labeled Marriage Agreement. Curious, she opened it. Inside was a signed contract between Adrian and his grandmother. If Adrian married before turning 30, he would immediately inherit his late grandfather's shares in the Villanueva Corporation. Emily's hands trembled. So that's why she finally understood. He hadn't married her because he loved her. He had married her because he needed a wife to secure his inheritance. The love she thought they had shared had been nothing more than a business decision. For a brief moment, the pain returned. But only for a moment. She closed the folder. No more tears. The following afternoon, Adrian stopped Emily in the garden. The roses she had planted years ago were finally blooming. You've changed, he said quietly. Emily continued watering the flowers. People change. You used to smile more. She laughed softly. I also used to believe lies. Adrian was silent. I don't understand you anymore. Emily finally looked at him. You never understood me. You only noticed me when I stopped loving you. Her words struck him harder than he expected. For the rest of the day, they echoed in his mind. That night, Emily sat alone in her room. The flash drive containing months of evidence lay on her desk. Every recording, every photograph, every forged signature, every illegal transaction. She carefully copied everything onto another drive and sealed it inside an envelope addressed to attorney Marco Reyes. Then she looked out the window toward the brightly lit mansion. The family laughed together downstairs, completely unaware of what was coming. Emily smiled, not with hatred, but with quiet certainty. In my first life, I begged this family to see my worth. This time, I'll let the truth open their eyes. She turned off the lamp and whispered into the darkness, "Tomorrow, the Villanueva family's perfect world begins to fall." The next morning, the Villanueva mansion was as lively as ever. The family gathered around the dining table, laughing over breakfast. Adrian's father read the newspaper while his mother discussed preparations for an upcoming charity gala. Emily happily scrolled through luxury handbags on her phone. None of them noticed Emily quietly walking down the stairs with a small suitcase. She wore a simple white dress and carried herself with confidence. Adrian looked up. "Where are you going?" Emily smiled politely. "I'm leaving." His mother laughed mockingly. "You'll be back in a few days. You have nowhere else to go." Emily looked at the woman she had once called mother. "You'll soon realize, I was never the one who needed this family." Without another word, she walked out of the mansion. No one stopped her. That afternoon, the Villanueva Corporation held an emergency board meeting. Halfway through the presentation, the conference room doors burst open. Several investigators entered, accompanied by officers carrying search warrants. The room fell silent. "Mr. Villanueva," one investigator announced, "we are conducting an investigation regarding allegations of fraud, tax evasion, money laundering, and falsification of corporate records." Adrian's father immediately stood. "This must be a mistake." The investigator calmly placed a thick folder on the table. "It isn't. Inside were copies of every hidden transaction, every forged document, every secret account. Someone had exposed everything." News spread within hours. Television stations interrupted their regular programming. Villanueva Corporation under investigation. Authorities freeze company assets. Executives face multiple criminal charges. Reporters flooded the mansion gates. Shareholders withdrew their investments. Banks froze company accounts. Employees resigned. Within a single day, the empire the Villanuevas had spent decades building began to collapse. Panic filled the mansion. Adrian slammed newspapers onto the table. "Who did this?" His father looked pale. Only family members knew about those documents. His mother's eyes slowly widened. "Emily." The room became silent. Emily scoffed. "That pathetic woman? She isn't smart enough." Adrian didn't answer. Instead, memories flooded his mind. Emily entering his study. Her strange calmness. The way she no longer argued. The flash of determination in her eyes. His stomach dropped. It was her, desperate. Adrian drove to the small architectural firm where Emily had recently started working. He found her reviewing blueprints in a bright office. She looked peaceful, happier than he had ever seen her. When she noticed him, she simply smiled. "What brings you here?" Adrian closed the office door. "Did you do this?" Emily leaned back in her chair. "What do you think? Our company is collapsing. Our family is ruined. Our accounts have been frozen." Emily nodded slowly. "I know." Adrian stared at her in disbelief. "You knew." "I made sure of it." Silence filled the room. "You betrayed us." Emily's smile disappeared. "Betrayed?" She stood and walked toward him. "Who betrayed whom first, Adrian?" "I gave up my dreams for you. I served your family for years. You repaid me by bringing another woman into our home. You planned to throw me away, just as you did in my first life." Adrian frowned. "First life?" Emily quickly caught herself. "I mean, you were willing to destroy my life without a second thought." Adrian lowered his eyes. For the first time, he had no excuse. When Adrian returned to the mansion, another surprise awaited him. Emily's room was empty. The expensive jewelry was gone. So were the designer bags, cash, and valuables. A short note lay on the bed. "I didn't fall in love with a poor man. Don't look for me." Adrian crushed the note in his hand. The woman he had sacrificed everything for had abandoned him the moment his wealth disappeared. As he looked around the once grand mansion, now surrounded by reporters and investigators, he finally understood what he had lost. Not his money, not his status, but the one person who had truly loved him. And she was already far beyond his reach. 6 months later, the Villanueva name no longer carried power. The mansion that once hosted lavish parties now stood abandoned, its gates locked and its gardens overgrown. Villanueva Corporation had declared bankruptcy after months of investigations. Adrian's father was sentenced for financial crimes, while his mother and siblings were left struggling to rebuild their lives. The family that once looked down on everyone had lost everything. Meanwhile, Emily's life had completely changed. She had accepted the architecture job she once gave up after marrying Adrian. Her talent and determination quickly earned her recognition. And before long, she was leading projects she had only dreamed of in her first life. She rented a small apartment overlooking the city. It wasn't as grand as the Villanueva Mansion, but every corner reflected her own choices. For the first time, she was living for herself. One rainy afternoon, as Emily left her office, she noticed a familiar figure waiting outside. Adrian. His expensive suits had been replaced by simple clothes. His face looked thinner, and the confidence he once carried had disappeared. When he saw Emily, he slowly walked toward her. "You've been avoiding me." Emily smiled faintly. "I've been busy." Adrian lowered his head. "I heard your company is doing well." "It is. I'm happy for you." There was an awkward silence. Finally, Adrian spoke again. "I came to apologize." Emily looked at him quietly. "I know my apology won't erase what I did. I know I don't deserve forgiveness. But every day I remember everything you sacrificed for me. The meals you cooked. The nights you stayed awake waiting for me. The dreams you gave up. I was too blind to appreciate you." His voice trembled. "I love someone who abandoned me the moment I had nothing. But the woman who truly loved me was the one I pushed away." Tears filled his eyes. "I'm sorry, Emily. I was wrong." Emily remained silent for a long moment. Then she looked up at the gray sky. "In another life, I would have waited years to hear those words." She looked back at Adrian. "But not anymore." He nodded weakly. "I understand." Emily smiled gently. "I forgive you." Hope flickered across Adrian's face. Before he could speak, Emily continued. "But forgiveness isn't the same as a second chance. You taught me something I will never forget. Love without respect isn't love. It's suffering. I spent years trying to become enough for you. I kept thinking that if I loved you more, worked harder, or sacrificed more, you would finally choose me." She shook her head. "I was wrong. The right person will never ask you to lose yourself just to be loved." Adrian lowered his gaze. "I know. I'll regret that for the rest of my life." Emily nodded. "And that's something you'll have to live with." A taxi pulled up beside the sidewalk. Emily opened the door, then paused. She turned back one last time. "I truly hope you become a better person someday. But that future won't include me." She stepped into the taxi. As it drove away, Adrian remained standing in the rain, watching until the car disappeared from sight. He didn't chase after it. For the first time, he understood that some mistakes could never be undone. Some people, once lost, were gone forever. Months late, Emily stood on the stage of an international architecture conference as she accepted an award for one of her designs. The audience applauded. She smiled, remembering the woman she used to be, the woman who believed her worth depended on someone else's love. Not anymore. She had survived betrayal. She had survived heartbreak. She had survived losing herself. And in the end, she found something far more valuable: herself. As she looked toward the bright lights of the auditorium, she whispered with a peaceful smile, "This life, I finally chose me." The end. Thank you for listening to the story. Don't forget to like and subscribe.